I'm Vinnie Politan, live from Denver, Colorado at CrimeCon 2025, where 7,000 of the most intense true crime junkies are all gathered here, and also joining them, some of the biggest podcasters and investigators in the nation. And one thing a lot of people are talking about today was yesterday's huge verdict in the case against Donna Adelson.
She had a little bit too much of an outburst. I was glad that the judge shut her down, but it was definitely the right verdict.
What's next for this family? What about Wendi?
I'm a little worried about Wendi.
One of the things here at CrimeCon is this wall of missing children. Everyone is so interested because they want to help. They want to help find these missing children. And something that people are talking about here as well, a lot of chatter about baby Emmanuel, who's missing out in California and whose parents were in court yesterday. And folks are wondering whether mom is going to turn on dad or if dad is going to turn on mom.
I think the father did it. I think, he had something to do with it. And I think the mother's lying for him.
I don't think he'll turn. I don't think he will.
Get ready for 2 hours of live true crime from the epicenter of true crime, CrimeCon 2025. There we go. I'm Vinnie Politan. We're live in Denver, Colorado at CrimeCon 2025. Standing room only live audience tonight for the program. And yesterday was a big day on Court TV, you all know it, but I thought it might have been today. So what I brought with me to Colorado was the red verdict tie, which I planned on wearing tonight, but the verdict was yesterday. And what a dramatic moment. Take a look.
We, the jury, find as follows as to count one of the indictment, first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Mrs. Adelson, control yourself. Count two. We, the jury, find as follows as to count two of the indictment, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Count three. We, the jury, find as follows as to count three of the indictment, solicitation to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder. And it is signed and dated by the foreperson.
Donna Adelson breaking down inside the court, at one point admonished by the judge. A lot of people talking about that reaction, and we're going to talk about that tonight. But something else happened last night that may be more important in the case moving forward. After the verdict, the prosecutor of the year, Georgia Kappelman down in Florida, was speaking to reporters and speaking to Joel Waldman from Surviving the Survivor, frequent guest on our program, by the way, and everyone was asking questions. Take a listen to the question he asked and her response.
Georgia, does Wendi have reason to be worried tonight?
You said that word. That's a bad word.
A bad word.
No W questions.
Worried is a bad word.
Well, last time you
should we say stay tuned? Do we need to stay tuned?
Stay tuned. I mean, you can stay tuned.
Stay tuned for what happens to Wendi. All right, we've got a lot to talk about. Let's introduce our guests joining us live here at CrimeCon. We've got with us Brett Talley, federal prosecutor, appellate chief for the Middle District of Alabama, and co-host of the true crime podcast, The Prosecutors and The Prosecutors Legal Briefs. Brett, great to see you tonight. Welcome.
Glad to be here, Vinnie.
Also with us, Alice LaCour, former federal prosecutor, partner at a big firm, Hilgers Graben, co-host of the same podcast for The Prosecutors and The Prosecutors Legal Briefs. Great to have you here. And next to me, who is wearing some legal briefs tonight, by the way, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, and one of my co-hosts on the Tangent podcast, Al Wunsch III, and retired police commander, host of the podcast Profiling Evil, author of the book Deceived, Mike King is with us as well. Great to have everyone here. Okay, Mr. Prosecutor, should Wendi be worried tonight?
Look, Wendi should be very worried tonight, and not only because of what was said there, but because this is a prosecution team that is committed to getting justice, and that won't happen until everyone who's involved in this conspiracy is in prison, and frankly, Wendi is the last one standing.
The last one. He's leaving out Harvey, Mike. What do you, I just want to clear the air on Harvey. Do you think Harvey is in play at any point?
You know, other than Rob Adelson, I don't think anybody in that family has got a free road in front of them. I think there is so much that we're learning about the dynamics in the family, Vinnie. The fact that there was control from the top down, and it was pretty darn obvious in the trial, and that Donna, at least from what we learned in this particular trial, controlled all the strings. And you know what? Harvey was right there to take her to Vietnam. Harvey was right there to support her through the entire court process. Is he responsible for anything? Heck, I don't know. But other than Rob Adelson, I think the rest of them need to be thinking about things.
Now, Alice, this prosecution is much different than many that we've covered through the years at Court TV. It's taken more than a decade. It's been like drip, 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 drip. Why? Does that help a prosecutor to do these, you know, first the three, the McBanawa and the two hitmen, then Charlie, then Donna? Does that mean that Wendi is next? And what are your thoughts about doing it that way?
Absolutely. These conspiracies are difficult to crack, especially when you have an entire family that is out to protect each other. So as each domino falls, the dominoes are getting bigger and bigger, and we're able to see them really crack into this case. The fact that this jury came back after such a short deliberation should make everyone else who is uncharged incredibly nervous.
Yeah. All right, Al, I'm going to put you in the room with Wendi Adelson tonight.
Yes.
Okay. As her lawyer.
Oh.
Yeah. So what are you saying to her? What advice would you give her? She's in Texas. Mm-hmm. This prosecution, obviously, if it happens, we don't know if it's going to happen. It was a stay tuned from Georgia Kappelman, is in Tallahassee in Florida. What are you telling her if you represented her?
If I was representing her right now, I would say head to Vietnam. There's no extradition there. And, I mean, even though mom screwed up, you know, maybe you can go through Mexico and then get to Vietnam.
But she's got two kids.
All right.
And the kids aren't fully grown yet, and that's a big deal here. Let me ask you, Brett, do you think that could potentially be one of the reasons? Do prosecutors ever have that in mind? Like, listen, these two kids, they lost their dad. Can we wait for the kids to grow up to prosecute mom? Is that even a consideration?
I mean, if mom killed dad, then no. I mean, if this were like a low-level drug charge, maybe. But no, I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think it's just, look, I mean, you could argue that Donna was in such control of this family that maybe Wendi didn't know anything. So that could be a consideration. Maybe they're hoping somebody will crack. Maybe they're hoping somebody will flip and say, look, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in prison. That's a possibility.
All right, let's take a look at some of the evidence against Wendi, because it's come out, you know, through the course of these trials that we've seen. First, I want you to take a look at this. This is a text message from Wendi to Dan, the victim, on July 6th, just before the murder. Wendi, are you in Tallahassee July 14th to the 18th? I just want to know if I can have the kiddos on the 16th. Thanks. Dan's response, yes, you can. What do you think of that, Mike?
I'll tell you what, looking at these communications, and specifically this one, isn't it interesting that it happens to be the same date ranges that McBanawa was helping the guys who end up responsible for this murder plan to rent a vehicle and make some travel on. You know, you can only have so many coincidences that you don't start to think something's going to stick and something's really stinky.
Okay, another piece of evidence. Take a look at this picture, because I'm fascinated by this picture, because I didn't think this would exist. So the woman on the right, I don't know who she is. She did nothing. On the left is a convicted murderer, right? The middleman, the broker. That's Katie McBanawa. In the middle, oh, that's Wendi. That's Wendi and Katie. Katie and Wendi. Take a listen to Wendi Adelson testifying about how she knew. Like, Wendi testified that she only knew Katie through Charlie, but but who was at the beach that day? Take a listen.
I think your testimony was that really you only knew her with Charlie. Is that right?
That's right.
Was Charlie at the beach?
No.
Your mother wasn't there either, was she?
No.
Okay, Alice. Katie and Wendi, no Charlie in sight. He's not in the loop. It's not a beach day. It's a beach day with the gals. Is that compelling evidence, or is that just a photograph?
It's not just a photograph. When you're looking at this, you're trying to put some sort of story together. And what we have here is she's not being truthful. We have a picture that contradicts what she's saying. So if she were more truthful, a jury might be more inclined to believe her. But we already have a strike because she's not being truthful about this picture. There may be an innocent reason for this picture, but the fact that she's minimizing their relationship already cuts against her credibility. So no, it's not just a picture.
Yeah, and now what's happened through the course of these trials, Al, she's testified.
Right.
Again and again and again and again, but she's had this immunity where
Correct.
nothing she says
Can be used
against her, or anything that derives from what she says.
Correct.
If she gets charged, would we see her testify again?
Well, I mean, I'm her attorney again?
Again,
okay.
You're in the room with Wendi Adelson as her lawyer.
Hey, she's not going to testify again. Okay, and the only stuff that they would be able to possibly use against her, which even with her immunity, is if she lied on the stand. So that's the interesting thing that comes up. That situation with regards to that picture, how do you explain it, is going to be something that they can use that evidence against her. So I'm going to say, listen, you're not going to get up there. And I don't see any benefit of her talking at this stage of the game, because I still think it's kind of a tough. The fact that everyone else seems to be involved and no one pointed at her from the family, I think makes that case very difficult for the prosecution.
Yeah. What do you think about the way prosecutors have used her for these other cases? Is that the reason that she hasn't been charged?
Well, obviously they made a decision that they were willing to potentially lose some pretty powerful evidence by giving her these immunity deals, because otherwise, is she going to testify? Is she not? Is she going to plead the fifth? I think they wanted to get as much out of her as they could to get these other convictions. If they have enough to move forward, they'll move forward, and they don't need her words. She will not testify. It would be the absolute worst thing she could possibly do. And it's just a question, look, is it just a photograph? Standing alone, yes. But then you put it with a text message. Then you put it with other things. All of a sudden, you're building this chain of inferences. You're building the circumstantial case.
Alice, any chance that prosecutors give a phone call to Donna? Donna, would you like to testify against your daughter in exchange for something? Or would you call Charlie?
I would absolutely see what deals I can cut. We have convictions and no sentencing yet. Whatever you can get out of Donna, look, she clearly thought she was going to get away with everything. That was real shock. She thought she got away with it.
Would you
Now she's
offer
fighting
her
for life.
anything that would give her a chance to be out of prison and still be alive? Because she's 75. I'm not wishing anything bad on her, but if she gets a 15-year sentence, that's a little rough. So any chance that a prosecutor would offer her something that would get her out of jail?
I think that the chips are all in the prosecutor's hand. They already have the conviction. They could go for the jugular, or because she's old, she's not the trigger puller, she's probably not going to go out and be a threat to society. I could see them offering that to make sure everyone who is part of this conspiracy gets convicted.
Okay. If you hear some noise in the background, folks, I'm telling you, 7,000 true crime enthusiasts, and they're coming in and out of all the programs that they have going here at CrimeCon. Take a listen, Mike. I want you to take a listen. This is Jeffrey Lacasse, Wendy's ex. Here's what he said.
After I challenge her, can I tell you something in confidence? Sure. Well, last summer, my brother looked into all options possible to take care of the Denny Markell problem, including hiring a hitman. This I found chilling, I found disturbing, it made my stomach flip.
How about that? Jeffrey Lacasse saying, Wendy's talking about, hey, my brother's Charlie talking to us about, every option's available, looking at maybe getting a hitman. How compelling is that to you? Do you believe him? He's an ex. He doesn't like Wendi. He doesn't like the Adelsons.
The thing that I always think is interesting in these kinds of investigations is that It's more about what's not being said than what's being said. And we're starting to see this groundwork laid of a storyline that really is compelling, makes a whole lot of sense. And you get things like this comment from him as she comes back and tries to look like Teflon. It doesn't pan out in a juror's mind, because they're going to look at themselves and think, I would never say that to my ex-spouse. I would never say I didn't know this person if I hang out at the beach with them. I wouldn't text a date range. I'd say, are you available on the 16th so I can pick up the kids? So, Vinnie, I think it boils down from a behavioral perspective to what's not being said, not just what's being said.
Putting the pieces together, I want you to give me a number, okay? 0 to 10, how strong do you believe the case against Wendi Adelson is? We'll start with Brett.
I'll say, right now, I'll say a 6.
A 6?
6.
A 6. Do the feds try a case if it's a 6?
We do not.
You do not. The feds don't. They don't like to lose. All right, 0 to 10.
No longer with the feds. I'm going to say 7.5.
7.5. You try the case?
I try the case.
Mike, 0 to 10, how strong you see this case?
You know, I'm about 50-50 on this one. I think there's a lot that has to come out. I thought that she revealed a lot in her testimony.
That can't be used against her.
That can't be used against her, but an investigator can say, I remember this.
Nothing can be derived from it.
Prove they didn't derive it from him.
Oh, he's a sneaky investigator.
Yeah.
0 to 10 now.
5.
A 5. All right. I'm going to say it's a 6, but there's something else in play here, folks. That trial's in Tallahassee, Florida. I've been at Court TV back in the days when before I started dyeing my hair silver. That's how long I've been there. We've never covered a trial out of Tallahassee where the jury came back and said not guilty. So as long as you get in front of 12 folks from Tallahassee, it goes from a 5 or a 6 to a 7 or an 8. And if she wants the 8, she better hire Alan Jackson. All right, folks, we got a lot more to get to. When we come back, we're going to hear from our live studio audience, CrimeCon 2025.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. Tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
We, the jury, find as follows as to count 1 of the indictment, first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Mrs. Adelson, control yourself. Count 2.
Donna Adelson verdict.
Yeah.
Reaction.
Shocked. Very. Yeah, not what I expected. Not what I expected. Not what I was hoping for.
She had a little bit too much of an outburst. I was glad that the judge, shut her down. But it was definitely the right verdict.
I think she is the dumbest criminal I've ever encountered. Who in the world puts it all down in her handwriting?
Welcome back. We are live at CrimeCon 2025 in Denver, Colorado. We're talking about the big verdict yesterday. Donna Adelson, guilty, guilty, guilty. And now we've got some questions and comments from our live, standing room only studio audience. All right, let's go over here. You have a question?
I do.
Well, wait, let me get the microphone over to you. Here we go.
I'm a little nervous. Wow. First of all, I wanted to let everyone know he should have been a comedian. You wouldn't know that just watching his show, but he's pretty funny. Al, I have a question and a comment, actually.
Just so you know, I was a comedian.
Okay.
I thought so. Al, I like your suit. And I want to ask you, couldn't they get Wendi on perjury right now? I mean, have you watched all the cases? There's so many discrepancies in her testimonies.
15 years as a prosecutor, I never went for a perjury trial. And in a situation like that, with regards
You
to...
can add them up, though, right? Can't you add them up? Like, there's like...
Let me ask you, is there a specific thing she said that you believe was perjury?
Yes, the K-turn. oh, I made the K-turn. Then she just drove by and didn't make the K-turn at all. I mean, that was one right there.
All right, one of the, Brett, you gonna prosecute someone for lying about a K-turn?
No, you're not going to.
I mean, that's just one of them. I mean, come on, we got it. You guys.
There's got to be much more to it. Honestly, it's not an easy prosecution to do, and it's really it's very ineffective. You're not going to get. She's not going to get 25 years to life on a perjury charge.
But it'd be so nice
with
to
no
see her get
prior
arrested.
record. She'd probably get a slap on the wrist, and that would be it.
It'd be so nice to see her in jail, though, wouldn't it? I'm sure the poor Dan Markel's family would love that.
But I honestly don't believe that she would be sentenced to jail if she was convicted of perjury.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. Another question over here. Yellow up. Question, comment? What do you have for us?
Hi. So for everyone, we talked about Wendi Adelson possibly being prosecuted for the full extent of the law. And my question is, as attorneys and investigators, how are you able to kind of piece that together in order to kind of have a clear case against Wendi? She wasn't there at the murder scene. We know that for a fact. She conveniently called the Geek Squad to fix her TV. She got a conditional arrangement with being able to say kind of whatever she wants on the stand and not being held against her. So how are you able to kind of thread that main argument if you were the prosecutor of this case?
Alice, I'll start with you on that one. Thank you so much.
Right. I think there's a reason she hasn't been, charges haven't been brought against her. It is difficult. But what you have is you've had these multiple trials, multiple testimony. There are things we still don't know that are against Wendi because they don't matter for the other trials. So there's investigative files on her that we don't yet know. But as these other convictions come in, we begin to see the web come together against her. Circumstantial, but you've already heard some of it. These text messages. We have motive. We have relationships. We have this family dynamic. Not easy, but it's beginning to build stronger and stronger.
Mike King, your thoughts on that?
Well, Vinnie, I had a really hard time, too many hours on the range, hearing what the question was.
Piecing it all together against Wendi. She got the immunity. How are you going to piece it together? She wasn't there. She's got an alibi.
Well, clearly you can't use what came out in the trial, so you have to go back to square one. They probably have a great amount of brick building that's already happening. When you start putting together the behavior and you start analyzing the behaviors against the things like forensic evidence or the physical evidence, but most importantly about the either not really confessions, but the admissions along the way when law enforcement's first talking to her about what happened, all of that. But I think that you start adding in the behavior, the changing of the children's names, all of that,
brutal. That was brutal.
is just so hard.
Let me ask you, Brett, how big would motive play? Like motive, you don't have to prove it. It's not an element of the crime, but it's so persuasive in a case like this because who ultimately benefits? Not the children, it's Wendi.
And she was asked that question, who else would want to kill your husband? And you're exactly right. You don't have to prove motive, but motive is one of the most important things, especially in the mind of a jury. And I just want to say, you got it. They have to piece it together. This is not going to be a one-witness trial where they say, oh, I saw him do it. But remember, what is her defense? Her defense is, I didn't know anything about this, right? But then you see things like the comment about my brother was looking into hitmen. That starts to break that down. And if you convince a jury she knew this was going on, they're going to convict her.
All right, we've got another question or comment.
Do you think the defense attorneys have tanked their careers because of this case?
Oh, the defense attorneys. Can you tank a career when you lose a case this big? Al? You've never lost a case, Al, right?
No, I've lost cases. I'm not Darnell. I have lost cases because, but I also don't keep a record. As anyone who has played baseball in college like I have, I didn't need to know how many home runs I hit or what my batting average was. I knew I was in the starting lineup, and that's all that counts. And that's the same thing in a courtroom, okay? Yeah. If you're not going to win every trial, it's impossible, okay? But nonetheless, it doesn't tank a career as long as you did a good job. And the best case to win is the case that you couldn't win, okay? But if you lose it, you weren't expected to win anyway, so.
And I don't think, was anyone expecting, anyone expecting Donna Adelson to win that case? No, all right. So I don't think there'll be that much harm. We've got another question or comment.
Okay, mine is on Donna Adelson, too. She was so defiant and she was so controlling. Were you surprised she didn't testify?
Oh, that's a great question. Surprised she didn't testify. Let's begin with Alice.
You never want your defendant to testify, but she has that whole Grammy look. She looks like this harmless person. It could have been on the line, except we know that the evidence was so stacked against her. We always say, you think you're smart enough to be able to talk the jury out of it. I think this jury knew exactly what was going on. If she testified or not, it wasn't going to help her. But I see what you're talking about. If you ever were going to have someone testify, she's kind of the best candidate for it.
Brett. Yeah. Brett, what happened here in one of the pretrial motions, the defense attorney sort of let it slip, was asked by the judge, how are you going to prove that? Well, she's going to testify. I know you're not bound to that, but do you think they were playing the prosecution, trying to make them waste some time in preparing for the cross-exam?
That's exactly what I think they were doing. I think they did that solely so they would have to spend some time thinking about how they were going to attack her. They probably spent a good amount of time thinking about how that cross was going to go, because if she testifies, that cross is the key to the case, right? And so, yeah, I think that was purely strategic. I don't think she was ever going to testify. I think that was always a smokescreen.
How about you, Mike? Were you surprised that she didn't, based on the way she has acted throughout? When she got arrested, do you remember? I don't know if you guys remember. When she got arrested, she had her cell phone with her. The officer takes it away. She goes, no, that's my cell phone. Like, who does that? Who does that? My lawyer. So were you surprised, based on the way she acted throughout, that she did not say, I'm going to testify?
I was absolutely surprised. I would have bet money that she would do that. Control is so important to her that I believe she would have thought, I can convince them like I've convinced and manipulated everyone else in my life. I'm sure that her lawyers were standing on her neck saying, you're not testifying, but I'm still wondering if she wasn't wanting to, even when things started sneaking out after the fact, that she might try to come back on that final day and say, I want to do it.
Yeah. And Al, right before she declined to testify, there was all this hemming and hawing. The defense was asking, we need more time, we need more time. The judge said, listen, you're not the first criminal defendant to be on trial in the moment at the end of your case when you have to tell me whether or not you're going to testify.
Right.
Was it ridiculous, or is that just me?
It was ridiculous. I bet, and she's got that Professor Irwin Corey look, you know, with the hair up and everything. That I would have put her on the stand. I would have put her on the stand, because you know what? I would have had her go up there, walk slowly up into the thing, get in, look feeble, okay, and just talk about the fact that, exactly. I probably would have had a walker for her, all right? And I would have had her get in there, okay, and just talk about the fact.
I'm walking so slow because of all the carbs they're feeding me.
And except that you promised food here, there was none.
There was none, there was none.
But I would have had her up there, and I would have had her testify as the old lady that was just, she was so surprised that this happened. She could not believe that her kids would have done this. Yeah. She didn't raise them this way. And she was more mortified than anybody that what happened.
And that's a good word. I can hear her saying mortified, but she didn't. All right, great questions from the studio audience. We've got more in the show tonight. When we come back, tragic story out of California. It's a heartbreaker. Little baby Emmanuel is still missing. His parents were in court. What's going to happen next? Will mom turn against dad? We'll talk about it. We are live from CrimeCon 2025.
They should have never had him, like, after what happened to their first baby.
I mean, everything could have been prevented. It was preventable from the very beginning.
It was abducted last night from Big 5. Somebody struck my wife while she was trying to change his diaper.
It's appropriate to have a press conference because it was the defendants in this case that had a press conference first. And they did so in order to tell the public, the media, and ultimately law enforcement that their child had been kidnapped, when in fact that's not what occurred.
Within 24 hours through video surveillance, we found inconsistencies in Rebecca's statement.
Here in Cabazon at the parents' home, it is now a massive crime scene since the parents' arrest early this morning.
The filing in this case reflects our belief that baby Emmanuel was abused, victim of child abuse, over time. and that eventually, because of that abuse, he succumbed to those injuries.
There is some level of cooperation with the suspects involved in this.
I believe that both of them are guilty, that we can prove it's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt for both the murder and the filing of a false police report.
Calling the case of Jake Haro and Rebecca Haro.
This case so heartbreaking. Little baby Emmanuel Haro out in Riverside, California, still missing tonight, has not been found. But mom and dad have been arrested. No charges, no details about the evidence they have as to why they've been able to charge them the way they have already with the murder of this baby who hasn't been found. But they say they have the evidence. Some other things have happened in this case that are really different than a lot of other cases we've covered. Most notably, it was on a Sunday afternoon when Jake Haro, the father of baby Emmanuel, after Jake had been arrested, was then out at a search site, just standing there, not helping searchers, not pointing anything out off of highway, I think it's the 60 highway. He's just standing there with two detectives, not saying over here, over there, and then he left. They obviously didn't find baby Emmanuel, but he was there. His wife, the mother of baby Emmanuel, was not there. People didn't quite understand what was happening. I mean, I think at first we all thought, oh, Jake got a deal. Jake turned. Jake is flipping, because that's what he did the first time he was accused of harming a baby. This is not a child abuse case. This is baby abuse we're talking about. His first daughter, 10 weeks old, with healing wounds. How on earth does a 10-week-old baby have healing wounds? He pleaded guilty and was given a break by the judge. So Jake Haro was able to walk out of the courtroom while his victim, his little baby daughter, will never walk, ever. It's not like she won't walk again. She will never walk, because she was just 10 weeks old when all this happened, and it was ongoing abuse. So now he's charged with the murder of Emmanuel, and so is his wife. But he doesn't have a deal. And prosecutors said they've been somewhat cooperative, the suspects. I don't know what that means. Let's bring back in our guests to talk about this. We are live at CrimeCon. We've got Brett Talley, federal prosecutor, Alice LaCour, former federal prosecutor. Together they are The Prosecutors and The Prosecutors Legal Briefs. Incredible podcast. You need to check it out. Mike King, Profiling Evil, retired police commander. And Al Wunsch, incredible attorney, is also with us. So, first of all, Mike, let's just talk about the search and what was happening that day. What are your thoughts about where baby Emmanuel could be and what they could try to figure out about trying to find this child?
You know, like many of us, the first thing I thought of is he's cut a deal to go out there with law enforcement. Two investigators that we're aware of, but there were a batch of searchers out there at the same time, Vinny, and you don't bring a bunch of people out unless you got some reason to think this is good information, that this is credible. Sometimes law enforcement might take a suspect out to a location like that to watch their behavior, watch if they're looking in any specific area. We don't know if there were telematics off of the vehicle that led investigators there, and they were just taking Jake out to watch Jake and how he responds, or whether Jake was saying, hey, I can point you, but now I can't remember quite where it was. But the other thing that really troubled me about this entire thing was we really don't know when that little baby disappeared. So we don't know if animal predation is involved in this, and if that child was carried off by a mountain lion, which are common in that area, or by coyote or other kinds of predators. But if in fact that happened, there would be more physical evidence in the area where the body would have been that those cadaver dogs would have picked up. So it makes you think, was this all a hoax, or were they just testing him to see if they could figure out where he's looking?
Right. So prosecutors have laid out a range of when this on or about, we know those magical legal words, but August 5th to August 14th is the range of when they believe this happened. They also said it was ongoing behavior. That's why they've charged mom and dad. But it's a baby. It takes 2 adults to murder a baby? I don't understand that. Alice, both of them are arrested. Are you approaching either to attempt to flip on the other? And if so, who would you approach first?
Absolutely. I think that someone is covering for someone else. And you take your run at both of them. I'm going to mom because dad has a history of abuse. Mom could also be under his thumb. She could be protecting him. There is a reason that you go after the mom. And also, exploit is the wrong word here, but this is her baby. She can get justice for this baby. Right now, she is protecting someone, I think. So I would take a run at both of them, but I think you're gonna have more luck with mom.
Al, let me ask you, if you're representing mom here.
Yes.
Sorry, I keep giving you these horrific clients.
Yeah.
But you got
that's why I'm here. The hard questions, Vin.
If you're representing mom, are you running to prosecutors? Or are you going to stick with the Ola man did it?
Well, okay. One.
Don't forget her story, her original story.
Yes.
Was that she was changing the baby in front of the Big 5 sporting goods store, and she heard someone say Ola, and then she blacked out, or no, she saw white, didn't see or hear anything, and then she got knocked out cold, one of those karate chops in the back.
Yes.
And then when she came to, the baby was gone.
Yes.
Are you running to prosecutors?
Yes. Okay, but I read what they did with him going to that area differently. I read that because she's been taking the position of stand by that man.
Yeah.
Okay. And what better way to erode that than to say he's out here looking for a deal? Whether or not he actually did anything, he's standing in an area that she recognizes, and he's there. So if I'm the prosecution in this, I go, well, you know what? I tell you what, he ain't looking to protect you. He's out here cooperating, and then maybe that's going to pierce her, shell and say, you know what? I better start talking. So.
Would you ever do that, Brett?
Hey, it's the oldest trick in the book. You put both suspects in different rooms and you say, that guy's telling us everything.
Room. He's next to the 60 highway.
Right, but it's the same thing. You want to send a message to her like, look, this guy may be talking. The other possibility is they have evidence that the baby is somewhere there and they want him to know, we're going to find this body. And if you're going to talk, you better do it now. That's another possibility there.
But what happened here, Mike, were you surprised? They did the search on a Sunday. Then Matt Johnson, Court TV, crime and justice correspondent, out there underground, goes back to, they're not there the next day.
Yeah, I found that
one-day search.
really troubling that they would stop that quickly. So it tells me that it was more of a fishing expedition than we've got credible evidence that suggests, because if you do believe there's a body buried somewhere or tucked under a bush, you're going to cordon that area off and you're going to grid search that thing with a fine-tooth comb. To walk away a day later, it just
tough.
really seemed tough.
All right, Alice, it's a murder charge. I can hear the defense already, one or the other, saying, because I heard it before years ago in Orlando, Florida, don't remind me, it was an accident. We panicked. How do you prove the murder? Because if they bring in a jury from Pinellas County, Florida, you're in trouble.
We're talking about a baby here, and we have indication that this isn't a one-time thing. It's not an accident. You know what shows it's not an accident? Ongoing child abuse to this baby who cannot defend itself. We have prior convictions of the dad of ongoing abuse. That's not an accident. That is deliberate, calculated, cold-blooded murder.
All right, big thanks to our incredible panel. Al, you're out of time. You're out of time.
Always.
Cut his mic. Cut his mic. Brett Talley, Alice LaCour, Al Wunsch, Mike King, thank you so much. When we come back, something else you need to know. We are live at CrimeCon 2025.
I've got golden tickets to my show tonight I got to give out to some folks. So let's see if anyone wants to come to the show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got some golden tickets to my program tonight that I'm going to give away right here, right now, randomly. I've got another one. Who wants to go? Who wants to go? Who wants to go to the show? VIP!
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. Coming up next, only on Court TV.
Studies show that having lots of books at home is one of the best ways to help a child succeed in school and beyond.
That's why the Scripps Howard Fund started the If You Give a Child a Book campaign.
So please, if you could give a child a book today,
we would be so grateful.
Welcome back. Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's go back to the mothership and see what's behind the big board tonight. 29,568. What is that number? That's from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That is the number of children in just 1 year that were reported missing in 2024. That is the reason why at the end of closing arguments every night since our launch, we profile a missing child. But tonight I have a special treat for everyone here live at CrimeCon 2025 joining us, and please give him a round of applause. He does amazing work. Callahan Walsh, the executive director at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. You and your organization obviously are awesome, and we appreciate you coming here, and we appreciate you sharing that information so we can get it out to our audience. Tell us a little bit about that number.
Right, and we're working at around 30,000 missing children's cases at any one time. Children go missing many different ways. Some are abducted by strangers, some are taken by non-custodial parents, some children run away. But the fact is that these children are in danger, and we need the public's help to highlight their cases and bring them home. And we do that through the media, through these partnerships that we have to get these images out there to bring these children home safely.
Now, a question that I get all the time, because we do it every night at the end of the program, people want to know, what happened? Did you find him? Did you find her?
Yeah.
And I have to explain that we don't reveal that. What I want you to do is explain why.
Right. So when a child goes missing, our job is to ring those bells, to put this machine in motion and to get as much media attention, as many eyeballs on these cases as possible. But we have to remember, these are children, and they deserve privacy. So when these children are found, we need to put that whole machine in reverse. Take all those posters down, get all of that stuff sanitized and down so that these families can heal, that they can recover, and then they can live that life that they need to live. And so, you know, oftentimes we don't get that feedback loop of exactly all the details and what happened in the case. And honestly, that's really done out of privacy of these families and for these children.
Okay, I'm glad you were able to explain that, because I tried to explain it, but now I'll do a much better job of it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
We have a missing child, sort of, tonight.
Right.
Explain to us about Christopher Enoch Abeta.
Yeah, so Christopher Abeta, he's 7 months old, kidnapped in the middle of the night, front door left open. This is nearly 40 years ago.
40 years ago?
40 years ago. And we know with infant abductions, when children are abducted under the age of 1 year old, that oftentimes they're still alive. They're out there somewhere. There's a very good possibility that this individual is living with a different name than he was born with, has no idea that he was even a kidnapped child, and could very well be out there alive today. And he has a desperate family that's been searching for him ever since.
Ever since. So let's get the picture up of how are these done, these particular photos?
Right. So this is an age progression of what we believe he may look like now, and we do these with our forensic unit at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We try to get every family picture we can. Mom, dad, brother, sister, but even aunt, uncle. You know, sometimes we don't always look just like our parents. Sometimes we go, oh, you got your uncle's eyes, you know? Yeah. So we get as many pictures as possible, and then we try to determine what this individual may look like
And that's
today.
what we have right here. We're out of time. Callahan Walsh, thank you so much. Incredible work. Great to see you again.
Likewise.
All right, folks, don't go anywhere. We've got another hour of live true crime. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.